So I'll just start with when you came to UNCC, what was your impression of the school when you first came, when you were being interviewed? And
Oh, I think I interviewed in the late fall of 1990, and I got here as provost in August of 1991. So at that time, University City was not very well developed the way it is today, and the campus had about 12 to 13,000 students, and by the time I left 5 years later, we had about 14 and a half, 15,000. Now, of course, we're 23,500. Excuse me, 25,300 this fall.
Wow. And that was before you went to Laramie, Wyoming?
Correct. I left here in April of 1997 and came back in the summer of 2005.
And how did you find it when you came
back?
back?
Completely different. Because in the interim, there had been the 2000 bond measure that had been passed by the voters of North Carolina, and that had put $3.2 billion of capital construction into the community colleges and the university. The university got about $2 billion of that, and UNC Charlotte got $200 million. So buildings like education and health and human services and the 2 new engineering buildings were all coming out of that, and so that was all new. Had been done since I had departed.
Were you, I guess, what was the interviewing process like when you were coming back to be?
It was a very good one. Jim Woodward was very interested in finding someone who could be engaged in the community and who wanted to be in an urban institution. I had been at UC Davis, which was not an urban institution, but had extensive doctoral programs. And so I was brought here really to help the doctoral program get started. And the chancellor also made me responsible for developing the first Center City classroom building, which we did in the early 1990s. So it was a great experience, but it was a very different institution when I got back after the 8 years of being in Wyoming. And it was principally because of the growth of this school, and it's continued to grow, and now we have an 11-story building downtown that was just opened this fall. So it's been an institution that has continued to be sort of on the move, and now with good locations in both places.
How do you think? A lot of people always say, well, that school's it's so far away, it's way out there. But now with the Center City building, it feels almost like there's more community involvement. And
we've had a lot more community involvement and engagement than we've ever been given credit for. And I think part of the difficulty of this campus location where we are in University City is we're so out of the way. With the Center City building, we now have a chance to have a visible presence. And then, more importantly, I think light rail is coming, and light rail will allow people to get out here much more easily, and it will connect from almost the Center City building within 100 paces of the front door of the Center City building all the way out here to near our residence halls and the student union. So it will be a way to move faculty, staff, and students and visitors back and forth, all day long. And then the addition of football, I think, will bring more people out to the campus starting in 2013 who would have never made the adventure to come out to the university. And that's a Saturday afternoon kind of activity, and it's more of a family event. So I think we'll see a lot more people become aware of UNC Charlotte in the years ahead than maybe we've been had the good fortune to have so far.
It's kind of an interesting how it did change and how it evolved, because it started at Central High School.
Yes.
So now we're back.
Yes, yeah. And interestingly enough, Central Piedmont, which took over that space of the old Central High School, and has become a primary partner of ours in terms of people progressing through higher education. They're the #1 feeder school of community college students to UNC Charlotte. So it's a nice historical tie, and many of the people involved in the development of Central Piedmont were involved in the development of UNC Charlotte.
I think when I started this, I found it interesting that, I always knew we had land to build on and grow on, and that would be motivation for selecting a location, but looking through some of the board minutes when they were looking on where they were going to select place to build. They looked in nearby Biddleville and in downtown, but they needed more acreage. But there was a certain law that stated a certain amount of acres must be built to establish a university. So later on down the line, that became very instrumental.
I've heard that story from Lloyd Witherspoon.
That's who, yeah.
But I've never been
that.
able to. I haven't attempted to document it.
To
but
find it.
He said that there was some requirement either in statute, in state law, or in Board of Governors regulations that said to become a campus of the university you needed 900 acres, something like that. And the parcel out here that we've now occupied is about 1,000 acres. So that's something probably you'd need to check in the archives of the Board of Governors or the state law, because
to find.
Lloyd testified to me that it was true, and therefore it must be true. but I hadn't seen that, and I don't recall whether Ken Sanford put that in his book or not.
I don't think he did. I don't think he did.
Lloyd may be one of the few people to actually know that story, and it might be worth trying to document if that's the case.
Finding where that law is.
Where it came from, yeah.
Because that's part of this, is I want to find, why here.
Right. And I don't know that story. Ken probably had some in his book about who the various players were. I know the Alexander family had a lot to do with this, and their living relatives are still around.
Mm-hmm. I think Mecklenburg County too. They had the poorhouse, or
right.
I think she was able to get some of that land too.
And you might want to talk to Peter Franz in our facilities area, or Richard La Liberté, who's our real estate person, and they may be able to help you with some of the history behind the poorhouse, because I know that we have a cemetery on campus, and the cemetery was the sort of paupers cemetery that still
like a
exists.
settler's field or something.
It's down behind the baseball field. And another person who was around in the early days that may have something to tell you about that is a guy, Jim Matthews. Jim is a retired professor of biology, and he's here in the Charlotte area, and I think he may still be listed in the Department of Biology, but I'm not sure. But Jim knows a lot about the campus development. He was a contemporary of Dan Morrill's.
He was biology.
Yeah.
Other person I spoke with was he was in the technology department. He did early IT.
Oh.
I can't think of his name right now, but he had a lot.
Yeah.
Well, as far as plans for the future, how do you see UNCC progressing? I mean, what's next?
Well, we've continued to build out. We've added, of course, football, and that's going to be a major structure and area of the campus. We have built a building called EPIC, which is the Energy Production and Infrastructure Center. It's going to be a new home for a couple of engineering departments, but also for an initiative to train power engineers for the future. We're building a building called Portal, which is a complicated acronym, but it's basically going to be an industry partnership building. And we've built the second motorsports building out on near Highway 29. So all of those have been part of the development of a technology infrastructure here for instruction and research. And then the biggest remaining priority right now is to get a replacement for the Burson building, which was, I think, built in the 70s, and it is not any longer a suitable modern science building. So we would like to build a science building right next to the Student Union. It's a parking lot right now. It's down the hill from the Student Union, but it would be the next major academic building we would try to build using state funds. We'll see. Downtown may expand over time. There's some land available nearby for downtown expansion. If we ever had a law school or a medical school, one could envision us spending more time down there. We'll be developing a public health school. It'll probably have a location in Center City. And out here, we project we'll have 30 or 35,000 students. So as many as we can hold, but we don't want to get, so overcrowded that we can't function. And that's why we need to continue to develop the infrastructure like light rail and peripheral parking facilities and shuttle systems that run people around the campus. those are all part to making it seem like a compact, smaller sized institution than maybe it looks like from the outside.
What are some of the main things you would attribute to the success of this institution?
I think we've had several things. We have had a wonderful piece of land that made it possible to grow. We've had very consistent leadership over the years. We're almost 60 years old at this location, and we've only had 4 chancellors. That's quite remarkable. We've had outstanding faculty like Dr. Morrill and others who provided continuity in the programs here. We've had very outstanding staff who've been able to develop recruitment programs that have brought students here and turned once what was a school for commuting students into now largely a residential campus, with about 80% of our students going to school here full time, and the vast majority of them living within a couple of miles. So it's a different place than it once was. The transformational event was when Chancellor Woodward decided, though, we would become a research and doctoral granting institution in 1989, and it's been that growth of doctoral programs and research that has really, I think, transformed the role we play in Charlotte and the role we play in the region's larger economic development. So we're becoming not just the town's college, but a major public university as well.
Mm-hmm. I think that's about it.
Well, if you need more, come back.
I appreciate that. Yeah, even since I started here in '04, and then I left for 3 years and then came back and I couldn't believe the difference.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was Ken Sanford who said every time you would come back to campus it looked different after summer.
Yeah.
And that's still true.
Yeah, and we're still
still
building.
changing.
Yeah. If you need any of the images from that, you could talk to Peter. He'd be able to give you.
What was his last
Peter
name?
Franz, Franz. He's in the facilities management area. And if as part of your paper you want to include
document
that.
that.
Yeah. So it looks like you've already started to write.
I have. I need to do more research in just going through the minutes, and then eventually I'm going to have to probably go to Chapel Hill and look through
Board of Governors. Yeah.
the papers.
You might want to go talk to Bill Friday.
That's what Ken Sanford said.
Yeah.
He said he would probably be great to talk with.
He would be great to talk with. And I'm sure, if you drafted a letter that I could send under my signature as a letter of introduction, he'd welcome the chance to talk to you.
Yeah. He still has his show, right? Doesn't he?
He does. Yeah.
Yeah, he'd be great to get to.
He certainly could. He'll know about, there was a lot of controversy at the time about whether Miss Bonney would be the president of UNC Charlotte, the chancellor of UNC Charlotte or not. Now that was his decision. And I think the view was that you had to have somebody who had a PhD be head of a major university campus. And so I don't know if that's relevant to anything, but I certainly think he knows of the, he had the utmost respect for Bonnie. And in fact, interestingly enough, when Erskine Bowles became president and he moved into the president's office up in Chapel Hill, it was occupied by pictures of white males who had been presidents at Chapel Hill or other campuses. So he asked me to get a copy of Miss Bonnie, and I took the portrait that's in the Union, and we had it duplicated. You can duplicate anything now. And he cut it down, and it's still in President Ross's office. Yeah. So there's people know about her role.
Mm-hmm. It's all the word of mouth stuff, at least,
yeah.
that I've heard. It sounds like she wanted to do whatever was best for the school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she was very
she
selfless.
She had hurt
person.
feelings about that. She kept them pretty private.
She did. And when I saw her, by the time I got to know her, she died when
3 or 4.
It was before I got here.
Yeah.
And I left in '91, and she was getting up where her memory wasn't. Sometimes I wasn't sure she knew who I was. She knew I was part of the administration, and she was always very gracious. But she was getting up in years, and then great person though. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good luck with it.
Thank you so much. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.